Theater is a unique place to create and share stories. This is the story of Theatrikos, the original community theater of Flagstaff, Arizona, a town a couple hours north of Phoenix and a couple hours south of that big tourist attraction which some people call the Big Hole in the Ground. Yes, the Grand Canyon's been around even longer than the town of Flagstaff. Our story opens with a small group of people with big personalities gathered in the dark and dry basement of the Weatherford Hotel in 1972. Well, dry in the sense of moisture, not in the sense of beverages. And Doris Harper White, a mother, school teacher, and professor, was part of that group of theater enthusiasts. And she would go on to help organize this handful of thespians and take their shows on the road. Though Doris Harper White was instrumental to the beginning of our story, she is not our protagonist. Our protagonist is really the theater company itself, Theatrikos. And as in all good stories, our protagonist wandered through the pine forest looking for a place to belong, a place to call home. Between 1972 and 1988, Theatrikos performances were staged all over our little town, from public schools to the Art Barn to the Little America Hotel. While Flagstaff seemed to enjoy these traveling productions, our town just couldn't offer a permanent home to this growing and talented group of gypsy actors, set designers, lighters, directors, costume makers, and stagehands. Now, take a look at this property on the corner of Beaver Street and Cherry Avenue. It was once owned by our friends and one of our town's founding families, the Babbitts. Well, that is, long after all this land was settled and cared for by the Native Americans. On that same property, a building was made into an Elks Lodge, and then a laborers' union hall, and then the public library. Later, it just sat empty after the library moved down to Aspen Avenue. In 1988, the City Council approved the proposal to lease the abandoned building to Theatrikos. Oh, this is one of our story's big triumphs, though there was much work to be done to convert it into a working theater. With donations and volunteers, walls were built and chairs gathered. Later, our little theater had professional theater seats installed. Oh, it really made us feel like Broadway. In New York City? Well, you know what I mean. The first full season of theater in the newly converted building was in 1989. Plays in that first season included The Importance of Being Earnest, The Lion in Winter, and Bleacher Bums. In 1992, we hired our first business manager, Mary Webster. And main stage productions continued regularly and were well received for the next 13 years. Yes, and so it was in the year 2002, 30 years after Theatrikos had been formed. that the building got a new name and colorful signage in honor of Doris Harper White herself. While no electric pine cones were dropped from the building's roof, crowds of supporters gathered to pay honor and celebrate this big event. We do like a good party in our little town. And wouldn't you know it, the next year, 2003, Theatrikos gave birth to Theatrikids. The talented and energetic Jan Rominger directed the very first play with children actors. By 2009, Theatrikos Community Theater, you remember, the protagonist of our story? Well, it was so well known through our region, it even received the first Viola Award for Best Performing Artist. Oh, and more awards came rolling in. With these exciting recognitions, the party continued and the fundraising skyrocketed. In 2010, Theatrikos hired a gifted education director by the name of Joe Maniglia. Children's shows took off with music, color, choreography, and spirit. Dozens and dozens of young people made their way through auditions and onto and even behind the stage. Sometimes the theater was swarming with these little talented rascals. In 2015, a graduate of Theatrikids by the name of Araya Kugler established a new program to involve children with special needs. It was called Stage Buddies and gave children of different abilities a chance to shine under the bright stage lights as well. As the years flew by, Theatrikos counted up well over 200 musicals, comedies, mysteries, and dramas. Some shows were classics loved by families across generations, while other shows were complete surprises and brought audiences much laughter, tears, and new perspectives on the human condition. Now, you remember we're in our story about the history of Theatrikos, don't you? Well, just as things are really looking good, we need to introduce another one of the many challenges for our protagonist. On April 12th, 2019, at 8:35 in the morning, there was a mighty movement that came roaring down Beaver Street. Well, it hit a clog and backed up a nasty mess into the basement of the playhouse. Costumes, props, dressing rooms, furniture, and even the beloved green room got dramatically damaged in this unnatural flood. Yes, even the recently hired executive director of Theatrikos, Chris Verrill, was forced out of the smelly building and onto the street. But with the energetic call to arms by volunteers and the board of directors, the basement was cleaned, redesigned, rebuilt, and rededicated to enhance the many different programs now housed at the community playhouse. The first show after the reopening was The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night. This powerful production was rewarded with standing ovations and new understandings of people with autism. Community theater was back in the game. Just so you know, the rest of that year managed to mosey along just fine. But alas, as most of you all know, The challenges kept rolling in. The coronavirus, or as we commonly call it, COVID-19, or the pandemic, swept across the globe and even to Flagstaff in the spring of 2020. Yes, the Playhouse was closed temporarily once again. Who knew that our protagonist would be knocked down again and brought back in different forms by its creative volunteers? Zoom and video equipment allowed important meetings and new formats for performances. Live from the theater basement, a delightful collaboration with the Northern Arizona Playwriting Showcase, or as we refer to it as NAPS, put short plays and interviews on the screens, giving actors, directors, and other folks a new electronic outlet. The great outdoors at the Arboretum provided a gorgeous and safe performance space as well. The pandemic gave new energy to remodeling the Playhouse lobby and even reimagining the property's landscape. The phoenix rose again. I mean the bird, not the big city to the south. And with the blessings of Theatrikos and the city of Flagstaff, a new and renewable long-term agreement was signed in the spring of 2022. Yes, after decades that included a long search and many repairs and remodels, the Playhouse is being recognized as a vital and now secure part of our community. While the stars are doing their same old crisscross journey through the sky, step by step and play by play down here in our little town, Theatrikos is thriving. The Doris Harper White Community Playhouse is coming back to life stronger than ever before. Yep, our protagonist is alive and well. With the dedication and hard work of so many supporters, volunteers, staff, donors, sponsors, and downright hard-working people with so many different talents and skills, our story ends in the celebration of 50 years. A whole half century. That's not a lot of time for some of those rocks in the Grand Canyon, but it sure is for us. And we're not going anywhere. We have new signs, new paint, a new lease, and we're looking to the future. Well, it's the year 2022 in Flagstaff, Arizona, and it's time to party. Now, you get some good celebrating in too, and we'll be seeing you around.